unless the enunciation of facts about them is threatening to their existence. But if they're going to make up stuff about me to raise money, I do feel a little left out of the money. Whether it's Republican Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts or the fluoride's a communist mind control conspiracy folks at the John Birch Society, people apparently feel free to make up stuff that I have not said and not done in order to raise money for themselves now. So I've decided that I want in. We are looking into the possibility of creating a new foundation that will license lies about me to conservative causes and lawmakers, things I haven't actually said but might be politically remunerative to the right people and groups. I won't let anybody in on the secret that I didn't actually say these things, provided that the conservatives who want to raise money off of me give me a cut of the profits. Then I will send 100% of my take to an apolitical, nonpartisan cause that I think is worthy. It's sort of fair, right? I mean, if the John Birch Society is cashing checks by essentially forging my signature on them, and I have no way to stop them from doing that, couldn't I at least get some of the cash? Joining us now is Sam Tannenhouse, editor of the New York Times Book Review and Week in Review, and the author of the book, The Death of Conservatism. Sam, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, good to be here with you, Rachel.
Should I be flattered?
Well, you're in pretty good company. You mentioned Eisenhower. Everybody mentions Eisenhower. But the Birchers also said that Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman were part of the communist conspiracy.
It is a tidy and very intellectually high-powered conspiracy.
Listen, by the time they were done with Milton Eisenhower, who was talking about him anymore?
Is there always somebody in this role for conservative groups of being the boogeyman, or for the John Birch Society in particular? What do you need it to be in order to be their boogeyman?
Well, that's a good question. What they really hate is the idea of governance itself. Set aside Democrats or even Republicans, it's the idea of governance. Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society founded in 1958, the year after the death of Joe McCarthy,
right, yeah.
Really founded to perpetuate that idea. Pointed out that the word democracy does not appear in the United States Constitution. Democracy itself was kind of was a plot, yes.
Is the John Birch Society, I know this is a bit of a weird question, it's maybe a little sensitive, is the John Birch Society only being allowed back into conservative circles now, like attending CPAC, co-sponsoring CPAC, because of the death of William F. Buckley? Was he the gatekeeper to keep them out?
Well, he was to a large extent. You know, there was a tussle when Bill Buckley got rid of them in the mid-'60s. He made his first foray in 1962 and denounced Welch's theorizing. You know, 90% of the government is controlled by communists and fluoridation of the water and all the rest.
Robert Welch, the founder of the Birch Society,
the Birch Society. And Buckley denounced that as drivel. But there were many on the right who actually supported Welch on the principle we're seeing in action today. No enemies on the right. If they can be useful, you keep them in the tent. Then by the mid-'60s, as you said before, they'd gotten so far off the grid that Buckley, a guy who kind of trafficked in intellectual circles, particularly in New York, and had a lot of smart liberal friends like Murray Kempton and John Kenneth Galbraith, got a little embarrassed by them. At the same time, though, as you said, they were forceful. They were useful. In the Goldwater campaign in '64, they were the foot soldiers. In some sense, they were the precursors to the Tea Partiers we're seeing now. So the right is always nervous about evicting people like that.
Conspiratorial theorizing is always going to be attractive to a certain segment of people who are energized or more likely enervated by what's going on in politics. The question, though, is once you are the subject of one of their conspiracies, is there any way to argue your way out of it, or are you in a rationality and fact-free zone and all you can do is pretend it's not happening?
In fact, you can't do it, Rachel. I was thinking about your very amusing remarks before. Robert Welch actually had a term. Robert Welch, the genius, presiding genius of the John Birch Society. It's called the reverse principle. If let's say the Soviets decide they're going to give up some of their nuclear warheads, or the Russians do in our time, they're not really doing that. Or if they're say they're going to do it, it's because they've got another plan. So if you say you now want to be embraced by them and you're willing to accept their attacks, and also that you invite them to point out statements you've made that you can prove are lies, I'll say it doesn't matter that they're lies because you're not saying what you really think. So if someone listens really closely to what you've said and what you really mean to say, they've got you every time.
What if I raise... No, it'll never work. There's no way around it except to talk about who they are in the bluntest possible terms, I think. But what does it say to you, Sam, that John Birch Society is back. After so many years in exile, after conspiracists had to contend with people who were sort of gatekeepers in terms of what counts as mainstream conservatism, what does it mean that the gatekeepers are gone now?
Well, it means that it's a movement without serious ideas. Look at poor David Frum. You know, someone who's actually kind of a consequential guy, protege of Buckley himself.
Yeah, he hates
more
me,
or less.
unfortunately.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Well, more or less evicted from the movement. That's right. He doesn't want. I don't know. Maybe he has his own conspiracy about you. Yeah. They all do. But, yes, there are no serious ideas left on the right. We see who the great idea people are, the ones who pretend to be, Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and all the rest. This is about as good as it's getting now. So they don't have a Buckley or an Irving Kristol or someone like that to call them out. There's another difference, too, Rachel, is that people like Buckley and Kristol thought part of the job of conservatism was to persuade serious liberals, if not to agree with them, at least to rethink their own ideas, to raise the level of discourse. That's not what the extremists do.
Sam Tannenhouse, editor of the New York Times Book Review and Week in Review, author of the book The Death of Conservatism. Sam, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Really
great to be here.
The president today released a video email to his supporters, essentially kicking off the 2010 midterm election season. His pitch is that first-time voters who turned out for him and Joe Biden in 2008 become second-time voters for Democratic candidates in 2010. Everyone's expecting Republicans to gain some seats in November, but Democrats have just received some unexpectedly good news about their own prospects for that election. For that, we turn to our memoir bump correspondent, Mr. Kent Jones. Hi, Kent.
Hi, Rachel. This unexpected boost for Democratic candidates coming from a very unexpected place.
All right.
Here we go. Sometimes it helps to be lucky. Just as Democrats face the prospect of heavy losses in the midterm elections, former President George W. Bush has a date to release his memoir, Decision Points, November 9th. That's just one short week after the midterm elections on November 2nd. For once, his timing is impeccable. Plans aren't final yet, but does this mean President 22% approval rating will be on a nationwide promotional tour at the exact time voters are deciding whether to put Republicans back in power? Just when Americans are starting to blot out the 2000s, will George W. two-terms mandate Bush turn up on Sean Hannity's couch? Crown Publishers said that some of the topics President Bush addresses in the book are the 2000 election, Iraq, the financial crisis, Hurricane Katrina, Afghanistan, and Iran. Now, if you made a list of topics Republicans would rather not have to talk about this year, it would be roughly the 2000 election, Iraq, the financial crisis, Hurricane Katrina, Afghanistan, and Iran. And while you're at it, remember this, and this, and this. For Democrats, the timing of GW's book is perfect, maybe too perfect. I wonder, could this be George W. Bush's way of saying he's sorry? At any rate, thank you, President Bush, for your timely memoir. Any chance you could schedule your next book for, say, November 2012?
Republicans have been trying so hard to make this a referendum on Obama. The Democrats thought the best thing they could hope for would that it would be a choice between Obama and the Republicans. No Democrat ever dreamed it could be a referendum on Obama v. Bush again.
Who will show up suddenly?
Thank you, Kent.